Your dream is alive and well, the American dream anyway, and at Taylor Guitars they've done a refresh we're going to tell you about, so stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name's Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
And we're here with Alamo Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos. If you want to support the channel, visit our spring store link below with custom swag and check out our podcast, The Fretboard Confessional. You can also go to our website and buy these guitars that have been newly released by Taylor, a refresh really to the American Dream line.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got 3 models, one of which is new, but not new to the American Dream line.
New, not new.
And that's the one you've got.
That's the one I've got right here. This is the AD21, the artist formerly known as the GTE Mahogany.
You beat me by half a second. I was the
knew
same
it.
thing. Artist formerly known as.
I learned from the best. I'll grab this one for
right.
me if you want. So yeah, I mean, we got the AD22e and the AD27e as well. Those have been around. They all mahogany guys. Mm-hmm. And the GTE Mahogany was probably, I mean, beside the 611 Limited, this was the GT that I like the best. Yeah. So it's more or less exactly the same. It's just been adopted into the American Dream line and gotten the same kind of finish refresh that all 3 of these have. So it's pretty neat. Yeah, well, so you should be able to tell what's going on. Finish refresh. Thanks for coming. We'll see. No, I'm just kidding. See you soon.
So they definitely have a particular look. It's almost leaning more into this kind of rustic Americana type vibe that they've had. I've noticed that with some of the changes, that kind of reveal binding is gone, which is fine. And I really like the new look. So first and foremost, I think what gives it its aesthetic, outside of being all mahogany in these models, is the burst.
Yeah, shaded edge burst on these. And I think it works really well with mahogany. And I did like the natural versions. I wasn't craving something different, but I think this is a nice option. And they have been doing quite a few different types of bursts, kind of refreshing stuff, and I think that they all look pretty sharp.
You know what's interesting to me, and this is just my personal aesthetic, but I find that sometimes when you take an understated guitar and you do a burst like this, you change the finish in some way, without really changing anything else, it can kind of elevate the aesthetic look of it.
Yeah.
So if you compare these to, say, like a Martin 15 series, where they've just had that same kind of stain for a long, long time, if you've done a burst on that, it kind of does the same thing. It elevates the... So I think that's a big part of what's going on here. And it helps to finish out that look with the really cool pickguard. I like it. I think some people don't.
Yeah, some people are turned off by it. I think it's such a classic look that, like, how could you not? So, got a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
First off, the refresh on the 27, the rename of the GTE Mahogany, also kind of usher out the GTE Urban Ash and the AD17e.
Yeah.
So, American Dream-wise, you are getting an AD27, AD27e, no more spruce top. Why do you think that is?
I think it's focusing the product line. A big part of the American Dream, let's remember the American Dream came out during the pandemic. It came out, and from my understanding, it was something that was already in the works. But when the pandemic took place and there were challenges both with sourcing material as well as manufacturing things because of new restrictions, having to close and reopen the factory and having new restrictions in the factory to make sure everyone is breathing their own air, all of that jazz. It necessitated or brought to the front burner this project, which is to create an American-made, stripped-down Taylor guitar that's all solid wood. So that was the impetus of it. And then the response was really great, but I think we saw here there were certain models that were preferred that people liked more, and the mahogany top guitars really took off. Our slower sellers were the spruce topped guitars. Yeah. And so I think that was a big part of it. And I've already said, I think the GT at launch should not have been named the way it was. I just think it's confusing to consumers. And sure enough, the minute they introduced new lines of it, having that naming convention created more confusion. So I think it was an inevitability to just say, okay, it's falling within these series of guitars that we make, falling into the aesthetics of those series. We're just going to call it by our naming convention that already exists, which is alphanumeric or numeric code
Yeah.
to describe the guitar.
So yeah, like if you've noticed, the GT811 is now the 811.
Which it should have been at launch,
have
in my
been.
opinion. So yeah.
GT-K21 is now the K21.
Now
Dropping
all
the
is right
GT.
with the world.
Now, finally, I can sleep at night. My next question. I think that for me, just throwing this out there, my favorite American Dream guitar that they have released might be the AD27 Flametop. But really, the one that I would get that I think is the best is the AD22e. I've fallen in love with this guitar. We've talked a lot about it. We've compared it to 0015Ms and, you know, Guild M20s, and, you know, it's a great all mahogany finger picking guitar. I think this one is fantastic. My question for you is, if Taylor's best-selling body style is Grand Auditorium, why no AD24 or AD14?
Well, I think from a business standpoint, you entice customers to still look to the 300 series.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, within a lot of different, not just guitar segments, but just the way a lot of manufacturers do things. Apple's really kind of famous for this, right? Is you create a line of things and you slowly step people up based upon desire.
Yeah.
You know, will the American Dream at some point have a Grand Auditorium? Maybe. But I also think, outside of kind of that suave marketing aspect of it, I do think that Andy Powers has a tendency of looking at things, guitars really as tools for a musician to utilize, and tends to think along these lines when it comes to body shapes and series and design and like tone woods of what serves this series or that musician the best.
Yeah.
And you know, the other part is these are all non-cutaway guitars, you know, again, keeping the cost down, very simplistic. And between these, you can choose one of these three guitars to really accomplish what you need it for, depending upon, you know, where you lean kind of musically.
Yeah.
So like the GP, I remember when they first brought this out, it was in Nashville, we were getting this introduction, and they had it settled on the name, but it was probably going to be Grand Pacific. And Andy Powers made a joke about, like, you could just call it General Purpose.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the design. That was, I think, his view of this guitar. This is a general purpose guitar. And then from that, you move to these, which are a little bit more focused.
Specialized, yeah. I mean, more people that love GS Minis that want an all-solid version, you're never going to get it. So start getting used to Grand Theaters, play them. They're just as comfortable. They're just as cool. And they have more body and more sound. And then this, obviously, my mind immediately goes to a finger-picking guitar, but it's great for strumming. It's great for everything. So I do think that while the GP is a great general-purpose guitar, more people need to realize that Taylor Grand concerts are not just finger-picking. They're not one-trick ponies. Yes, the Grand Auditorium does everything perfectly, but this is another body shape that's slightly different, but still accomplishes a lot of the same.
Well, and I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think the Grand Auditorium does everything perfectly. I think what it does is it does a lot of things well, right? And so the Grand Auditorium is that classic versatile compromise.
Yeah.
It's not a big body guitar, but it can get you pretty close.
Yeah.
It's not a small body perfect fingerstyle guitar, but it can get you pretty close. And so the reason it's popular is a lot of people look at it to go, if I need a guitar to cover a lot of bases, it'll certainly do that.
Yeah.
But if you want a jumbo, it's not. And if you want a grand concert, it's not. And so so I think there is some room to maybe speak to the benefit of having a more focused guitar. And particularly with these guitars, the other interesting thing about this line is it's the most affordable, all-solid wood, American-made guitar that Taylor manufactures. And they've made some very specific decisions, not just with the aesthetic, but with the wood choices, the design choices, even the strings, to give this a particular tone, which I would argue is not the classic Taylor tone that most people think of. These guitars really remind me a lot of maybe some older, more vintage-style guitars, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, let's hear them talking about them. So I'm going to play each one of these, playing the same exact thing on all of them so you can really hear the tonal difference between. But they do all do individual things better. I'm just trying to kind of show you the average. So take a listen.
Well, so there you have it. So Cooper, I'm going to start with you on what do you think these guitars deliver tonally and kind of from a response standpoint?
I mean, they all do give me that old school tone, kind of a dry, warm, vintage sound. And I think that's something that I often get from all mahoganies, but these especially being that thin, kind of semi-open pore. I mean, it's not like the most open of open pores.
Yeah, they use their filler, but it's a really
still
nice finish, actually.
Feels really thin. Feel a lot of vibration coming off the guitars. I will say that while the AD22 is what I think is the best choice for most people getting into the American Dream series, that's the one that I always try to put in somebody's hands because it's like, this is the comfortable playability of a Taylor, but it's got kind of a unique tone within Taylor's line. The one that I liked the best playing today was the, not GTE mahogany, the AD21e, and it reminded me when we did that GT comparison kind of thing where we ran down all of them. We had the black top, we had the mahogany, the 611, the 811, all those. I think they're all cool, but it reminded me why I liked the mahogany one a lot, and I think it's kind of the perfect in-between between a GS Mini mahogany, the AD22 or something. I mean, the body size is good, it's comfortable to play, and it pushes out just more sound than a GS Mini.
Yeah.
And it's all solid, it's American made. I think that one is a winner right there.
I like that there's a lightness of build here, which I'm always gravitating to, which allows these guitars to be very resonant. One of the things I pick up on all three models is barely playing it, it's very responsive. And that's, to me, it's a hallmark of a good guitar regardless of price point. When you barely strum the string and you can just kind of play musically, that's where the guitar gets out of your way and is really a companion to your music. And so I really like that. With the all mahogany construction on these and the strings that they've chosen to utilize, there's a dryness to this tone that I really like. And I think it's a very smart move from Taylor. The Martin 15 series has been a top-selling, very popular line of guitars for the reason that these exist. Because it's Martin's American-made, all solid wood, kind of affordable entry-level line
Very
of
stripped
guitars.
down. Yeah.
And so I think it was smart for Taylor to kind of come out with something similar in that respect, but put their own spin on it. And you remember when we did that comparison that you were talking about with the 22 versus the 0015M, that shockingly we were surprised the Taylor sounded darker.
Yeah, a little darker.
And so these also represent that kind of new sound for Taylor anyway, and a very vintage Americana tone that I think a lot of players right now are looking for and it appeals to.
Yeah, for sure.
I dig it.
I dig it too. And I think that the shaded edge burst just kind of adds a little bit, like we were talking about, it's usually all mahogany, entry-level American guitar. That adds kind of an extra flair that makes it a little more elegant, a little more...
a little upscale.
Stand out a little bit more.
Yeah, and you pair that with some of the other things that are on this, like the compared to other lines of guitars like this from other manufacturers, the rosette's actually inlaid. You've got the chamfered edges. I think the finish work is top-notch, as Taylor typically is, but when you're going for something that's open pore, so to speak, and very thin, it can tend to get rough.
Yeah.
And this is very, very nice. And then, of course, all of the fit and finish and typical things that you'd expect. What slays me all of the time is that the fretwork and everything else on this guitar is just as good as on a presentation series.
Yeah, so's the pickup.
Yeah, well, so's the pickup. Good point. But yeah, so you get a lot of value. There was a change with the bags that these come with. Is that correct?
So these both, the 21 and the 22, come with the brown arrow case that all the American Dreams come in. Strangely enough, the 27, I took it out and it has kind of a gray-blue arrow case. Same exact arrow case, just different color. I do not know if that's a factory mess up and they sent us something else, but we will check to see the other ones that we received.
I have never seen one before. Have you seen one before?
I have not seen one.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
Martin's case?
No. Do you remember that custom Taylor case they gave me?
Yeah.
It's that color.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's the same blue inside and the same kind of lightish blue on the outside. So
It's cool. Maybe they're switching up arrow cases and we just discovered it by accident.
Or doing something different for the Grand Pacific.
I think it's kind of cool.
Because the solid or the higher end ones come in that tool.
The Western leather.
Yeah, so could be.
But yeah, if you get this specific one, you will be getting a case that is not the brown arrow case.
Yeah.
It will be a blue arrow case, which is cool.
Very cool. So if you want more information about these guitars, you should go to...
You're going to want to go to alamomusic.com.
All these years.
I almost forgot. I've been browsing way too many other websites today. Alamomusic.com. You can look at all the new Taylor stuff and all the old standbys. American Dream refresh. We've also got 814 builders on there that just dropped today as we're filming this video. So maybe that's why my mind's elsewhere.
Very cool guitar.
But yeah, the new American Dreams, they, much like the rest of Taylor's series, I think they're just breaking it down to the essentials, really keeping it nothing superfluous. So you got these ones that are very cool. You still got the flame top that I love.
Yeah.
So it's worth kind of diving into the specs on each one, seeing what's being offered, and yeah.
Had a great conversation at our Babcock store with a guy who was surprised by the flame top the other day.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't typically like Taylors, but that guitar is awesome.
They like to throw in the outliers every once in a while to convert people.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's a very, very cool guitar. Well, so there you have it. You can check out our website for more information about these guitars. And if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the videos, and we will see you next time.